You're sitting in your kitchen, maybe eating breakfast, scrolling through your phone, and suddenly, there it is. Another headline, another city, another number that used to be people. And you put your phone down, you take a sip of coffee, and you think, why do I feel so heavy right now? I'm fine, I'm safe, nothing happened to me. But something did happen to you, something quiet, something your brain processed before you even had the words for it. Here's what nobody tells you about modern warfare. You don't have to be anywhere near a battlefield for it to rewire how you think, how you sleep, how you connect with people. And today, I want to show you exactly why that is, because understanding it might be the most important thing you do for yourself this year. Let's start with something called vicarious trauma. Now, this isn't a new idea. Psychologists have studied it in therapists, in emergency workers, in journalists embedded in conflict zones. But researchers started noticing something strange in the last decade or so. Regular people with no direct connection to war whatsoever, were showing up with symptoms that looked remarkably similar to those of first-hand witnesses. Disrupted sleep, hyper-vigilance, emotional numbness, a persistent sense that the world is less safe than it used to be. And the culprit? The screen in your pocket. Think about what your grandparents experienced during, say, World War II, if they were civilians far from the front. They got news through a radio bulletin, maybe a newspaper the next morning. Information was filtered, delayed, and honestly, incomplete. Your brain got the story, but it didn't get the footage. It didn't get the live stream. It didn't get 47 different camera angles and the ambient sound of sirens playing on loop while a commentator narrates in real time. Your brain, though, your beautiful, ancient, absolutely not designed for this brain, cannot tell the difference between watching something happen and being somewhere near where it happens. The amygdala, which is basically your internal alarm system, fires the same distress signals either way. It sees threat. It prepares you. Cortisol goes up. Heart rate changes. Your nervous system shifts into a gear it was built to sustain for maybe 20 minutes at a time, not 24 hours of rolling coverage. And so you're stuck, living in a body that's physiologically preparing for danger, while your rational mind is saying, relax, you're just watching TV. There's a concept in neuroscience called mirror neurons. These are the cells that fire when you watch someone else experience something, as if you're experiencing it yourself. They're the reason you flinch when someone else gets hurt in a movie. They're the reason your chest tightens when you watch a mother in a bombed-out city searching for her child. Your brain isn't being dramatic. It's being empathetic. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. And in a world with infinite media access, that capacity for empathy becomes both a gift and a source of very real psychological pain. Dr. Elaine Hatfield, a social psychologist who spent decades studying what she called emotional contagion, found that humans are wired to unconsciously absorb the emotional states of those around them. And I'd argue, we're now around everyone, all the time. We carry grief from places we've never visited. We carry fear from wars we're not in. We carry a kind of ambient dread that's hard to name because there's no single event that caused it. It just accumulates. Here's a metaphor I love for this. Imagine you're a sponge, a perfectly good sponge, doing sponge things. But instead of being dipped in water occasionally and then wrung out, you're sitting in a bucket all day, just saturated. And after a while, a sponge that's never wrung out doesn't absorb anything new. It gets heavy. It starts to feel waterlogged. And eventually, it loses its shape. That's what sustained exposure to traumatic news does to your nervous system. It doesn't make you stronger through exposure. It makes you waterlogged. Now, and this is important, none of this means you should stop caring. The impulse to watch, to witness, to refuse to look away from suffering, that comes from something good in you. Studies on moral psychology, including work from Jonathan Haidt and his colleagues, suggest that humans have a deep-seated intuition that acknowledgement matters, that bearing witness is itself a form of moral participation. You watch because some part of you believes it's wrong to pretend it isn't happening. And you're right. It is wrong to pretend. But there's a difference between witnessing and drowning. And your brain, left to its own devices, doesn't know how to make that call. There's something else war does to your psychology, even from a distance, that we don't talk about enough. It destabilizes your sense of safety in ordinary life. Psychologists call this the disruption of the assumptive world, the invisible set of beliefs we carry that the world is basically predictable, that bad things happen to other people, that tomorrow will resemble today. War footage, especially modern, close-range, real-time footage, shatters that assumption. Not just for people in conflict zones, for viewers. And once that assumption breaks, anxiety finds a foothold in places it didn't before. You might notice yourself thinking twice about crowded places, feeling a vague dread you can't explain, lying awake running scenarios that would have seemed paranoid to you a few years ago. This isn't weakness. This is your threat detection system doing the only thing it knows how to do: scanning, preparing, protecting. The problem is, it's protecting you from something you can't actually fight or flee from. And so that energy just sits in you, restless. Here's what I think is the most profound piece of all of this. We are the first generation in human history to be emotionally present for wars happening on the other side of the planet, in real time, while also being physically powerless to do anything about them. Every previous generation that experienced the horror of war experienced it either firsthand or at a delay significant enough to process. We don't get that buffer anymore. We are psychologically in the war while physically sitting in our living rooms. And that gap between emotional presence and physical helplessness is, I think, one of the defining psychological tensions of our time. So what do you do with that? I'm not going to hand you a listicle, but I will say this. The first step is naming it, not minimizing it by saying, I shouldn't feel this way, I'm not even there. Your nervous system doesn't require proximity to be affected. What you're feeling is real, it's valid, and it's actually a sign of your humanity functioning correctly. The second thing, and this is worth sitting with, is learning the difference between staying informed and staying immersed. One is a civic act. The other is slowly handing your nervous system to an algorithm that profits from your distress. And the third thing? Find somewhere to put the energy. Donate, volunteer, write, talk, create. The psychological research on this is actually beautiful. People who channel their distress into action, even small, symbolic action, show measurably lower anxiety and higher sense of meaning. Helplessness is the wound. Agency is the medicine. You didn't sign up for this. None of us did. But here you are, carrying the weight of a world that is both brutally far away and impossibly close. That weight is real, and so is your capacity to carry it without being crushed by it. If any of this resonated with you, if you felt that unnamed heaviness, and now you have a few more words for it, drop a comment below. Tell me how you cope. Tell me what helps. Because I think that conversation might matter more than you realize. Take care of your mind. It's the only one you've got.